This is the first of two videos I'm creating to explain how to install the Jazz Team server for use on the WebSphere application server, not the Tomcat application server. A couple of things to be aware of is I've already installed the DB210 database and I've already installed WebSphere 8.5.5. I have not installed the Jazz Team server yet, however that is stored in a folder on the C drive, and we will be installing that as part of this first video. In fact, that will be the first thing that we're doing. Also note that the server that we're working on has 8 gig of RAM, and that's important because it's going to make a difference later on in the installation for some of our WebSphere configuration settings, and this is a 64-bit system. So we'll go ahead and get started, and the first thing we'll do is open up the installation manager, and I'll run that as an administrator with the elevated rights, and I think it automatically runs it as administrator, but I'm going to go ahead and make sure. Once that starts, we'll go ahead and we'll add the repository config file to the preferences list within the installation manager, and then we'll run the install process. And it takes a few seconds for the installation manager to start, and once it does, like I said, we're going to go to preferences, and we're going to add repository, browse to our software folder, C, software, JTS, or wherever you have downloaded the software and expanded it to. That may be in the downloads file, doesn't really matter where, and add the repository.config file. Once it's there, just hit OK, and we can then go to the installation process. Now note that we're going to install the software, but we are not going to configure it yet. There's some other things we have to do first. So we select all of the Jazz Team server options. Accept the terms of the software. And when I'm installing any of the IBM software, I always just leave it in an IBM folder on the root of the C drive. That helps later on when I'm configuring things. It makes it a little bit easier. And one thing to note is when you are using the WebSphere application server, you want to uncheck Install Tomcat 7. Note that that simply changes the installation folder of the WAR files from the Tomcat folder under the server to a web apps folder directly under server. That's really the main difference, along with not installing Tomcat. Use the default application context routes. The only reason you didn't use one of the previous ones is if you had installed the earlier versions of the Jazz tools and wanted to upgrade as opposed to install from scratch. Once you've selected all those options, go ahead and click install and the process will begin. Now once the installation is completed, you have the option of opening the documentation. I'm not going to do that on this video because I'm going to have a separate window open with the documentation. However, I do recommend that you open that. In fact, we'll do so now so that you can see where we're going to start. I'm going to also close the installation manager because we're pretty much done with that. Note that it's in the IBM Knowledge Center. We can open that up a little bit. And then we're going to set up the WebSphere application server using the deploying and starting the server. And then we're going to go to deploying and starting the WebSphere application server. The first thing we'll do is we will actually go and deploy under deploying and starting the server, deploying and starting the WebSphere application server. And we will do this using the Integrated Solutions console. That's basically just the administrative console. Now, within those instructions, there are two subfolders. There's setting up WebSphere application server, and then there's deploying the application onto WebSphere. The first thing, this video is going to address only setting up WebSphere application server, and then we'll have another video that actually talks about configuring the JAS tools on the web server. So when you're looking at your instructions, log on to setting up WebSphere application server. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off from this screen, and I'm going to go ahead and begin following the instructions, and you can follow along. I'll be going point by point through the instructions. So the first thing is WebSphere is installed. We're going to go ahead and open that while we're reading the next comment. The administrative console is where we want to go. I did not set an administrative password, so I'll just click log in here. The next point talks about the database being created. The DB2 has been installed. Databases for the specific JAS tools have not been created, however the database server is installed. The instructions here are referring to the Derby database. This instruction does not apply if you are using any of the other databases, whether it be DB2, Microsoft SQL, or Oracle. The second point here only refers to the Derby database. The third point, referring to Java 2 security option being turned off, is very important. By default, I believe it is, but we'll go ahead and make sure that it is by clicking Security, Global Security, and then we want to look under Java 2 Security when that window comes up, and it is cleared. The next thing that we're going to do is make sure that Enable Administrative Security option is checked, and Enable Application Security are also checked. Once you click Enable Administrative Security, Application Security is also automatically configured. The next thing we want to do is ensure, under the next point, is ensure that the use available authentication data when an unprotected URI is accessed application server settings is selected. So if we click on our web and SIP security here to the right, we will then go under General Settings and click the Use Available Authentication Data checkbox, which it is. And now we can click, since we've got that checked, we can click OK. The next thing we want to do is make sure that our LTPA cookies are secure. Under the next point, Security, Global Security, Web and SIP, where we were a minute ago, but now we're going to go to the single sign-on portion of that. And we're going to click Requires SSL. We can now hit OK, or we can hit Apply. We'll go ahead and do that, and then so far we're going to save these changes to the master configuration. The next tab talks about a property to avoid SESN0008E error messages. Not really sure what that is, but we're going to go ahead and follow the instructions to make sure that we've covered that. So click on Server, Server Types, WebSphere Application Server. Then we're going to go to Server 1. Once we've clicked Server 1, we'll then go to Container Settings. Under Container Settings, we're going to click Session Management. Under Session Management, we're going to click Custom Properties. We will then click New. we will simply copy and paste the information or the new name that is given to us in the instruction. That value will be set to true, and we will hit apply. And then save that to the master configuration. The final bullet point tells us to change the web container thread pool and size. So that's going to be under server types, webs for application server. We're now going to go back to our server 1, additional properties, which is scroll down. And under additional properties, we'll click thread pools. Under web container, we'll open that. And we're going to set 200 in both the minimum and maximum size. We're going to hit OK and save that to the master configuration. So note that the next portion of the instructions talks about the Java heap sizes. It talks about it being an optional, or rather a recommendation. If you have a VM or a server running with 8 meg of RAM and 4 processors, these instructions should work. So let's go ahead and we will update the information for the Java heap sizes. First thing we'll do is go back to our server 1 where we were, go to Java and to process management. Under Java and process management, click process definition, then Java virtual machine under the additional properties. Within the Java virtual machine, the initial and maximum heap size should be 4 gig. And then we will cut and paste from the Windows and the JVM arguments, just additional JVM arguments a little bit below that. We will cut and paste the values provided on the instruction sheet under the Windows subdirectory or Windows purple heading. And again, note that that's just specific addresses, memory sizes that will match the 4096. Now the instructions next talk about adding, well, first of all, we want to go ahead and save what we've done. So we'll hit OK and save that to the master configuration. The next thing we want to do is go to the Java virtual machine additional properties and then add some custom properties. Item 10 or instruction number 10, we're going to add the Jazz Home. Step 12 rather adds additional custom properties. So we're going to go through each of those and just add them as instructed. Click New. We're going to enter the information exactly as it is in the instructions. The new name is Jazz Home, and the location for that home we're going to copy, but we're going to modify the paste to be what our actual file information is, or the home of that file is. And in this case, it's not under the program files, it's under the actual IBM subdirectory. So we don't have to worry about the additional program files. Also note that it is, in this particular case, Jazz Team Server is the folder. If it has something to the effect of Jazz Home, you want to make sure that that is actually Jazz Team Server. Once we've done that, we'll go ahead and apply that. And then we'll add the additional information that starts in step 12. Java AWT headless is the first. The value for that is true. The next is the name beginning with org eclipse. Add that as new. The value for that is true. Now we are not connecting to Oracle in this case or Microsoft SQL, so we won't worry about those. However, the startup log4j configuration we do need to enter, which is the last property within step number 12. So we'll add one more new value, and that's also going to be an explicit path, so we will copy that again from the instructions and paste it. Again, note we are not under the program files, so we're going to say the file is C:/Jazz Team Server. And that should be good. Once we're done, we're going to go ahead and save that directly to the master configuration. And at this point, our changes are complete, or our preparation for the WebSphere application server for Jazz is complete. For these changes to take effect, we need to go ahead and restart the server. So we're going to log out. We'll go ahead and turn off the console. The easiest way to stop and start the server are go to Program Files, under the Profiles for WebSphere, App Server 01, stop the server. Again, run that as administrator. And we'll validate that the server is stopped and started by going to Services. We can move this to the side. And we're going to watch as that is stopped. Let's go ahead and do a refresh. And IBM WebSphere is now stopped. Now we'll go ahead and start the WebSphere server again. WebSphere, Profiles, App Server 01, start the server, run as administrator. Once that has started, we can then go ahead and open up the administrative console. And WebSphere is configured. So that ends this video. The next one, we'll talk about the actual configuration of the Jazz tools now.